Okay, it's recording and streaming now, Chair. Over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's session of the Resources Scrutiny Committee here at the Vale of Glamorgan Council. Before we get into the agenda, I shall just go through with you our usual informations. Won't be 1 second. So can I remind everybody here that this remote meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and then this recording will be archived for future viewing. If a participant wishes to speak, can they please use the remote raise hand function located at the bottom left-hand side of the screen. Please be patient and aware that there may be a slight time lag and you don't need to press the button again. If having raised your hand via the remote function, you're not subsequently invited to speak, please turn your camera on or place a message in the chat function. When invited to speak, please could you ensure your microphone and camera is switched on so you can be both seen and heard. And once you've finished speaking, remember to turn your activation button off to not delay other participants from coming onto the screen and avoid background noise when other participants are speaking. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function, and that's for the sake of the recording. If anybody has any difficulty hearing or being heard when they're addressing the committee, they should let myself or the Democratic Services Officer know. So, welcome committee members, non-committee members, officers, and any member of the public watching us at home. If we can then move to our agenda, please. And the first agenda item is apologies for absence. So, Liz, do you want to just let us know who we've had today? If we have anyone today?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We've got apologies through to Democratic from Councillor Ian Johnson and also from Councillor Lovelock Edwards, who's unable to join us, unfortunately. So we'll pass her apologies as well, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Wood, did you want to speak? I saw you came on the screen then briefly.
It's okay. Councillor Carroll will probably cover it. That's fine.
Okay. Thank you. Right, okay. If we move then on to the minutes of the meeting. Oh, Councillor Carroll.
Yes, not so much apologies, Chair, but Councillor Fisher has a previous meeting, so maybe late. I can't see if he's joined from the screen, but if he isn't, that's why, and he will be joining us.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for letting us know. Right then, so let's move on to the minutes of our last meeting, held on the 21st of May. 2025. It was a short meeting, I do remember that. So if everybody's present, I'm happy to say that that is a true account of what we talked about. Just raise your hand and we'll move on to the next agenda item. Thank you. Councillor Goodjohn and Councillor Drake. Brilliant, thank you. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest and the nature of such interests. Do we have any tonight? No? That's smashing. We shall now move on then to our first paper, which is a reference that's come from Cabinet from the 19th of June. It's the Q4 Sickness Absence Report. And I understand we have Kim Waite, who's an officer from HR, who's going to just take us through the headlines. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Okay. The Council has introduced several initiatives to tackle sickness and presenteeism, including improving digital access, wellbeing programmes and managing annual leave. Line managers play a crucial role in supporting employee health and wellbeing across all teams. We are committed to supporting staff working from home and those in frontline, especially in areas like waste, social care and schools. The HR Business Partnership team works closely with occupational health and managers to manage absence promptly using the new HR dashboard to monitor service level sickness. Additionally, all cases of sickness, stress, anxiety are referred to occupational health, with counselling and training provided to managers to support staff effectively. Our revised mental health and wellbeing policy outlines clear roles and expectation for managing workplace stress related absences. I'm pleased to share that the continued progress, excuse me, we're making in prompting positive health and wellbeing across the council. We're committed to supporting mental wellbeing through a number of approaches, including our Learning Cafe workstream and the recent Stress Awareness Campaign month in April 2025. In addition to mental health, we've expanded financial wellbeing sessions and continue to provide a wide range of resources via our Wellbeing Hub. Our occupational health team offers regular health checks, flu vaccinations and wellbeing screening to support physical health. We're also working closely with the Health and Safety and Wellbeing team on initiatives such as workstation assessments and menopause support to ensure a healthy work environment for all. Absence levels are closely monitored by leadership to provide timely support, and managers continue to play a vital role in managing sickness and supporting staff return to work. Together with these initiatives, help us create a workplace where staff can thrive and deliver the best service to our communities. You will note, following feedback from a previous scrutiny meeting, the reason other was selected when the other reason was selected for a sickness absence has been removed and replaced with a number of alternative reasons. These can be found on page 4 of the report. Where possible, we have tried to change the absence reasons to more relevant reasons for previous absence. With reference to the attached appendices, you will see there is a reduction in absence levels compared to the same period in 23-24. Figures are stabilising with emerging downward trends. We're not complacent in this area and are continuing to review processes which could look to continue support our staff and reduce need for absence, particularly when considering stress-related absences, for example of stress risk assessment and wellbeing action plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim, for taking us through that. And we were, I'm sure, as a committee, really glad to see that Scrutiny has played a part in the reviewing of the sickness absence categories, and that, as we requested, others removed because it isn't actually a category. It's not really that helpful. So I'm really pleased that that's happened, and that also that opportunity was taken to have a closer look at the different categories and align them with industry standards and what other public bodies and authorities were doing. That was really good to see. Understand that it is an improved picture in terms of total days lost in terms of percentages, although slightly up on last year. And yeah, stress continues to be up there as one of those really difficult things to manage. Before I open up to questions to everybody, I've just got one particular one, and it might just be the way I'm reading this, but it seemed that there is a very, very limited amount of days lost to a phased return to work approach. And as we know, if somebody has been off for a little while, it's quite a useful adjustment to support them coming back into work. And I just wanted to ask that question. Is it something that is used and considered on a regular basis by service areas with people who've been off for a long time? Is it offered to them and maybe they don't want to use it? Or is it something that we don't use that often? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, our policy allows for a phased return to work after a long period of sickness. It's normally a recommendation from our occupational health department, allowing for supportive days. And I would say it's considerably used actually to support our colleagues return to work, and it's obviously monitored with HR and managers.
Thank you, Kim. So, committee, your opportunity now to ask questions, please. Councillor Carroll, come in.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. Two questions, if I may, please. Firstly, in relation to non-work-related stress, I note that even though those numbers are down on 2 years ago, they are still concerningly high. I was just wondering if the council had carried out any comparison on figures for this form of absence vis-a-vis 10 years ago, because I note from the report that we have recent years included. It would be interesting to see what those figures have been historically, especially pre-COVID. Do you have any information on that? And if not, could it be provided, please? And secondly, again, this isn't really related to sickness absences per se, but it was something I picked up in your comments, Kim. Was in relation to working from home and the authorities' commitment to enabling staff to do so. I would again press for some work to be carried out on the impacts that work from home or remote working may be having on productivity within the authority. The reason I cite this is because I've certainly noticed a significant drop-off in performance post-COVID, and that obviously coincides with the change in working patterns and practices. Again, it's important that this authority considers the impact that may have on service provision, because that is what the authority exists to provide. So again, I would ask that some analysis could be carried out on that, please. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll. Kim, do you want to come in on the first point?
Yeah,
thank you.
Certainly. Thank you, Chair. Yes, so absolutely, Councillor George. We can have a look at previous data and share that with you to see how the trends have changed over the last 10 years and especially times before COVID.
Oh,
would you like me to come in on the second one?
Please, Kim. Yeah, go on.
Yeah,
sorry.
Okay. No, that's absolutely fine. So we do have a hybrid working policy where our managers ask for the amount of time that people need to be in the office based. So that can vary across service areas. And we can certainly look at seeing what information that you'd like from that and share that with yourselves.
Thank you, Kim. And for another day, because obviously we are looking at a sick absence report. So unless Councillor Carroll, your question on working from home is related to sick absences, it's probably not appropriate for this particular agenda item, but I do know you have a keen interest in this. Councillor Campbell, do you want to come in now?
Hello. Hi, Kim. So how else are we using this data? So I'm just making these up now, but are we looking at saying there's potentially higher stress levels in, I don't know, our school staff? So we're using this to potentially put more, training in place. There's higher work-related injury in our waste staff. Like, how are we analysing these figures and using them in other areas?
Is it okay to come in for that, Chair?
Please do, Kim. Go ahead. Yeah,
Yep.
Thank you.
So we do look at our figures in relation to the type of support and preventative work that we can do. Within our report, there are the positive actions that we carry out within the council, such as flu vaccinations, wellbeing health screening from occupational health, and the health and safety work assessments as well. We've also got the finance education specialists coming in with the financial support. So we are looking at economic and community causes for sickness, if there are patterns coming through. But we'll certainly take it into account with what is being reported.
Thank you, Kim. Councillor Campbell, do you want to come back in on that one? See.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so we're not actively kind of using this in regards to like potentially like training or anything like that. We're just using this in more of like wider terms, like in regards to like potentially like flu vaccines and like workshops and things like that. We're not using this specifically drilling down to specific areas and saying there might potentially be a trend in this area that we might need to look at in regards to our staff. We're just kind of looking at this in more of a broader sense.
Are you happy to come in, Chair?
Please do. Yes,
Yeah.
go for it. Thank you.
So we do look at the holistic approach, and what we're trying to achieve is developing the IDEV system, where we are enabling managers to help support staff who may be suffering with stress, and around reasons for absence. We'd also be looking at stress risk assessments as well to mitigate some of those stresses that may be happening in the workplace, to cause for people not to be absent from work. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think I'm just kind of looking at like, sorry, I'm kind of quite drilling down on this point, Kim, but I'm just kind of thinking if we have this big, composite of data and we've split it down into the sections, which, the report has done, we've split it down into each directorate, then if we've potentially got an issue with certain levels of absence in one directorate, then there might potentially be an underlying issue in that directorate that we can address in regards to, is there an issue with staffing? Is there an issue with training? Is there an issue with, X, Y, and Z that we're not addressing as a council? And it seems to be that we're not looking at that. We have this big pool of data which has been compiled very well, and we've split it all out into other sections in regards to split out the other. So we've got more of these categories, but we're not kind of addressing the underlying issues that there might be. So it seems to be making the data a little bit redundant.
Okay, so we have the HR dashboard, which presents sickness, absence and reasons and the occurrence as well. HR business partners present that to the leadership team at directorate level, which would allow us to look to see if there are any areas that are potentially causing concerns. So I do think we pick that up at HR business partner level with our DMTs that we support.
All right, okay, thanks, Kim.
Thanks, Kim and Councillor Campbell. And I think looking back at some of the things that they've highlighted, stress absence is quite high. So they are looking, aren't they, at wellbeing sessions with staff. There's L&D stress awareness work modules. They had a targeted campaign, Stress Awareness Month, April 2025. So I suppose there were some measures there, but as Councillor Campbell said, I guess it's what more you can do with your data to try and inform different approaches and different initiatives, which is always helpful. Otherwise, as she says, it's just there, isn't it, sitting on the shelf? But I appreciate that we are doing things where we can see there's some consistent high levels. Councillor Carroll, do you want to come back in with another question related to the sick absence report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. To confirm, it will be in relation to that. It was just a follow-up on the point about non-work related stress. I noted, Kim, from your answer that you were prepared to look into the figures and share them with me. Can I take it from that the council hasn't carried out any such analysis to date?
Thanks, Kim. I think it's just in relation to non-work related stress. I think that's right, what Councillor Carroll said. I guess you must be looking at all of your data in some way, but particularly that one. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Carroll, I'm not sure what you mean. Could you explain that?
Yeah, no, it's just that from your answer, you agreed to share data dating back 10 years and to carry out some analysis on the back of my question. Can I take it from that answer that to date, the council hasn't made any comparison on the numbers taking non-work related stress, sickness, absence now or post-COVID from the pre-COVID period?
So we've shared what we've got in the report in front of you. We wouldn't have usually, to my level, gone through back to the 10 years, no. But that may have happened within the head of service remit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Tom, please come in.
Thank you, Chair. And it was just to add to what Kim was saying, and obviously wanting to make sure that we give Councillor Carroll as comprehensive an answer as we can do this evening. So it's purely a matter, Councillor Carroll, of the presentation of the report in terms of the data. So it's not a problem at all for us to go back and pull that composite over a longer time period for members to have. So we'll make sure we'll pick that up.
Thank you, Tom. Councillor Wood, would you like to ask a question on the sick absence report? Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Chair. Just a couple of things. I mean, obviously, this change to hybrid working has been going on now, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, possibly. And we seem to be seeing increasing levels of non-work related stress. And I think it's quite important that we at least dig into these numbers to ensure that working from home isn't creating people excessive non-work related stress. So we have different directorates with different levels of people working in the community or working in offices or working in schools necessarily. And I think it's important that we try to do a little bit of analysis to make sure that if people are stressed, I looked at the reasons in the breakdown in some of the appendices. I think it's important that we try to work out that actually by giving people the option to sit in their house and complete their work day isn't possibly contributing to the stress that they feel doing their work. I don't know if that data could be available. And do we have any analysis? And the second question, do we have any analysis of any obvious successes of any of the programs that we've brought in to help that we believe seem to work better than others to get people to recover from this stress? We're at risk of performing lots of different things because this is obviously something that's become a bigger and bigger issue over the last few years. But it'd be interesting to know if we have any evidence of any particularly successful programs that we undertake to help people return to work.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Yes, please do. Good questions. Go for it, Kim. Thank you.
Okay, quite lengthy, so bear with me. So the hybrid working policy has been in for some time, and it's very much the business partnership team are working closely with managers, identifying whether or not staff need to be in the office and also challenge whether or not they need to be at home as well. So obviously there is that communication there. With regards to non-work related stress, there is a difficulty trying to establish and go into finer details around that. I think the extra reasons for non-work related stress are clear and hopefully will provide us a bit more information around that, such as bereavement, which we're seeing a bit more of late. With regards to the analysis of successful programming, I can certainly look into that and come back to you. I know we get data from our Westfield Health support team with regards to how many people access that. I guess we could look at how many occupational health referrals are made as well and the support from them, including the phase return processes that we've spoken about earlier. We work very closely with our health and safety team as well with regards to, excuse me, wellbeing action plans to help support people come into the workplace when they are ready to do so. Does that answer everything?
Yeah, I think it's you know, I just like us to see if we can. I would just like us to see if we can get to a point where we slowly but surely work out what may or may not be successful. And of course, everybody's different and everybody has different situations, but it's only by digging in that we're ever going to get an answer to this. Hello? Is anybody there?
Yes, we can hear you. We can't see you at the moment. So I think there's some gremlins.
Don't know why that's
Yeah.
gone off. But anyway, thank you for the answer. That's fine. I'm
Yeah.
here anyway, even if you can't see me, that's probably what's ringing.
And I think Councillor Wood's got a good point there, that if we can look at the things that we have done that seem to have worked really well, and we'd be interested, as I think as a committee, in those reviews. I'm pretty sure about 6 months ago, Tracy was going to come back with a review of the Westfield. And I think maybe that would be appropriate as well, if we can see that. And can I quickly ask you a question on the categories as well? Where we've had that non-work related, and in a number of different service areas, there's different reasons, but those, I guess, are reasons that the employee has given by way of a further explanation of what may or may not have contributed to their non-work stress. Is that right, Kim? So they're not established categories. They're reasons that... Is that right? Thank you.
So we've got established list of categories there for employees to identify the reasons for their absence. So they're quite specific now. So hopefully staff will be able to identify those accordingly.
Sorry, I probably wasn't that clear myself there. Really sorry. So they've already said it's non-work related stress, but then there seems to be like a second layer of potential explanation for that. But is that something that the officer has provided themselves and said, oh, but it was this? That's all.
Sorry, I will need to get back to you on that, Councillor, if that's okay, Chair.
That's fine, don't worry.
Yeah, I think because the stress work related is particularly stress.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, some of the descriptors are different with the service areas, you see, but that might have just been the particular cases, I guess. It's, yeah. Councillor Wood.
Is it me again? Right, yes. If I could just say, I mean, as I understand, there is a big long list of descriptors, but of course, I understand, you know, work-related stress, but a disciplinary or issues with staff, even though they're small numbers in the total, and bereavement, yes, I understand bereavement is a terrible thing for people to have to go through, but I don't know if HR in their professional understanding of HR issues would consider those to be stress-related things, but that's down for HR to decide. And the percentage of what they make up is a small thing, I understand. But anyway, we'll just keep digging into these numbers and trying to find the solution.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. And like you said, I think earlier on, what could be the cause of stress for one person is going to be different for someone else, just like the solution might be different too, because it really isn't one size fits all, this kind of thing, is it?
No, I understand that, but of course, every one of us at some point will encounter some form of bereavement, and
yes,
and whether that requires, yes, I'm just, you know, trying to get my head around these numbers because it's an awful lot of time lost, and I just want us to try to see if we can have any effect on really driving the numbers down, or is this the level of stress-related illness in the council in perpetuity? Because it may be better than other councils, but it's still an awful lot of people.
Sure, and we want to do the best for our people, don't we? I think I agree with you there. Anybody else with any questions, please, about the sick absence report? No? Okay, that's great. So if we just move on to the recommendations, and they were that committee considers the report, and also to refer any comments or further recommendations back to Cabinet. I don't think we've got recommendations for Cabinet, but we do have some requests, please, for committee. So could we have, as Councillor Cowell has asked for, which you can send to all of us, that would be great. So just, some comparison, data comparative from 10 years ago. And I think he wanted it for all categories, but I know he specifically said the non-work related. I think if we could just remind Tracy that it would be great to have a review of the Westfield, or is it Westwood, but of the occupational health and how we're doing with that. And I think also, as Councillor Wood has just requested, I think we'd like to see a review of where we know we are successful and particular things that have been helping people, especially in terms of the stress-related absences, because that is, as I said, it's a very difficult time, and it isn't just us, and we know that, but it would be good to be able to zone on and to see where we're making a difference and to make sure that we continue to do things in that vein. So if committee's happy with that and those three things that we're asking for, a hand to move, and we'll move on to the next. Thank you, Councillor Goodjohn. On to the next agenda item, which is another reference. This one, agenda item 5, is the closure of accounts. That's a reference that's come to us from Cabinet on the 3rd of July. I think we've got Matt Baumer to take us through this. We do. Welcome, Matt.
Hi.
Thank you.
Evening, everyone. So I'll introduce this report. Just say a couple of words of introduction, if that's okay. So yes, you're right. It's been referred to this committee by Cabinet at its meeting on 3rd of July. And Cabinet requesting you consider the report and for any recommendations to go back to Cabinet. We've been working on the presentation of the figures to make the financial picture as clear as possible. That is a challenge. There's a huge amount going on in the numbers in the report at the moment. There's a comprehensive overview of the position in the body report, and then more detail on a directorate by directorate basis in the appendices. The year-end position for the council was a break-even one, but as you'll see, there are net transfers from reserves of £12 million. The most significant of those were unplanned, 6.4 million of which was in respect of schools and £5.5 million social services. There are also drawdowns from reserves to fund the capital programme. That's on a planned basis. There are a number of transfers to reserves planned, proposed rather, in the report, and that's £3.3 million. And approval for that is being sought from Cabinet. So there's a further £2.1 million to underwrite the school deficit position. That's on top of the £2 million already set aside. There's 275k for additional learning needs reshaping and youth. There's 486k for community placemaking and country car parks, car parks. There's 353k for reshaping assets, and there's a small contribution to top up the council fund. That's just 44k. It won't surprise you to hear it's been extremely challenging year on a number of fronts, and you'll have heard that from me 2 or 3 times now this year when I've come and presented to you. There's been a real persistent financial pressure in social services, and that was right from the start of the year, and predominantly in children, young people services, and that's been driven through quite an unprecedented increase in placement spend, driven by both demand and cost. The director and his team took the committee through those pressures earlier in the year. There's other key pressures in the report across additional learning needs and the impact that has on school transport budgets. And there's also been pressures across road maintenance, waste, grounds maintenance and street cleansing as well. I guess one of my major concerns is school spending. schools spending well in excess of their in-year resources at the moment and running their collective reserves down into a net deficit of £4.1 million at the year end. A little bit more less than schools were forecasting, but also a little bit more than we'd anticipated. 28 of the 53 schools are now in deficit as at the 31st of March 25. It's been necessary for the council to underwrite this position from its own reserves. It is a national issue with reserves, school reserves across Wales reduced by £50 million during 24/5, but we're rightly focusing on this at a local level. The director and head of service are meeting with those schools with the highest levels of deficit on a one-to-one basis, and the council's continue to review its approach and escalating its measures still further, which we're considering at the moment. We're working on the 25/6 budget submissions at present. The position remains very challenging, definitely, and it's not really helped by the fact that not all grant schemes are confirmed at this moment in time. We'll need to give a thorough update on this position at the September meeting, at the time that you'll receive the Q1 monitoring for the new financial year 25/26. Just to highlight a few numbers in the report. Net spend for the year was £308.8 million. That's funded by revenue support grant of £162 million and redistributed NNDR, national non-domestic rates, of £48 million and £99 million of council tax. Not visible in those numbers are specific grants. So there's the £308.8 million is net of £104 million of specific grant, over half of which are from the Welsh Government. The council has to manage probably in the order of about 200 grant schemes, which does make monitoring and financial management more challenging. We do report net at the moment, and I'm working through how we can give greater transparency on gross spend, so bringing fees and charges and the specific grants that I've just mentioned more into play and visibility. The council did benefit from £1.8 million of precious grant from Welsh Government late in the financial year, and that's been well received. On top of that, there's been £1.8 million upside on borrowing and investments, and a surplus of £2.8 million on council tax, albeit that's been offset by additional commitments against the council tax reduction scheme. Our council tax collection rate is improving, which is good, and we're currently 9th highest of the 22 Welsh counties for in-year collection. We're not quite at our target level of in-year collection performance at the moment, and certainly the overall council tax take that has benefited from continued strong performance with our historical arrears. A review of reserves is undertaken when setting the budget and also when closing the accounts. It's been especially important for 24/5, given the spending pressures and the unplanned use of reserves in year. So there's been a rebalancing of reserves with the council fund strengthened, given the increase in financial risks faced. There's been topping up of the social care reserves and the budget risk reserve, as well as the further underwrite of the school deficits that I mentioned at the top. I'm obviously happy to take any questions, and if there are any points of real specific detail, I'm happy to take those away and get back to you on those. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Everybody's hand's gone up, so I'm just going to move straight to the questions, starting, I think, with Councillor Franks. Would you like to come in with a question for Matt? We can't hear you, sadly, Councillor Franks.
There you are. Yes, okay. Thank you, Matt, for that substantial report. I'm going to focus on school spending, and I have to ask the question: when will we, as an authority, learn that we are simply underfunding our schools? We've heard about the unplanned use of reserves and the extra £2 million contained in this report, and I just wonder if we could have an indication of the situation in the previous year for schools, to have a bit of a historical trend understanding. It seems every so often we're promised that schools are going to be given strong guidance on procurement, and that will be a major aid to school budgets, but very little actually seems to be achieved. And I'm not convinced that schools are that inefficient, especially when you consider about 80% of their expenditure is on wages, so that only leaves about 20% for some efficiency savings within that 20%. I would suggest that this committee recommends to Cabinet that schools are adequately funded, and I would say we have to consider that if schools are being forced to pare down their budgets, it will affect the curriculum, and that will be a disaster. But it is also a disaster that year after year after year that the budgets for schools are subject to all these pressures. And as a small final comment, I picked up that Matt said that that the schools still haven't had all the grants from Welsh Government, if I'm right in understanding what he said. And I must say how difficult it is to properly manage a school budget when these specific grants from Welsh Government come so late in the financial year that although they're very welcome, they make planning very, very difficult. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, so just to confirm on the grants that schools haven't had, they've had all the grants they should do in 2024-5. We're obviously starting to plan in the new year with schools, and they're submitting their budgets for approval, and that's where we don't have a complete picture on the grants. But from my perspective, if I were a school, I would want all my grants from Welsh Government 1st of April, so I know exactly where I stand. So even at early July, it's really too late in terms of effective financial planning to be notified what your grant levels are. And I do know it's going to be significantly later in the year that we really have a full picture of the grants from Welsh Government for our schools. And whilst we've been lobbying Welsh Government around the formula and the allocation of resources to this authority, I think that's another area that we should be lobbying on, so that we have all the grants right at the start of the year. The underfunding of schools, yes, we continue to be the lowest funded council for our schools block. However, the council has attempted to rebalance the position and has put significant level of resources in over and above that. So when you look at the actual level of resources that are available to schools, it's not ideal, but we're a little bit further along the line, so we're with 5th lowest. there is obviously a very complex position with all our schools. There are always schools who are doing very much their utmost to balance the budgets in very difficult positions. And at the end of the day, we all need to live within the resources that we have. But there are some schools out there that do have an exceptional level of deficit, whereby it's really difficult to understand how they're at that level, given the level of resources that the schools do have. And those are the schools specifically that I referred to in the intro to the report, that the director and the head of service are working on a one-to-one basis with. The head of service is obviously leading the transformation piece. There is procurement resource in place now that's supporting schools to make sure that their procurement and their bringing of third-party suppliers is as effective as possible. I do accept the point that the majority of the school spend is on salaries and wages, so that's the most important part of their budget. But when you're faced with these challenges, you need to look everywhere in your budget. So it's right that focus is also on procurement. Okay.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Councillor Franks. We all need more money, and as Matt has just said, we are receiving the lowest amount of funding for schools out of other local authorities. So, of course, as a committee, we will write and we will ask Cabinet to lobby on our behalf. And also, as Matt has said, schools need to know they've got their grants at the beginning of the year. So we will ask them to also lobby, as you've requested, that they get their grants through early rather than later. So at least they know what they're doing. Do you want to come back in? I can see you've come back on the screen, so please do.
If I may, I might be teaching Granny to suck eggs, but I think it's worth pointing out that many of these specific grants that schools receive, and I think we're all agreeing late in the day, they benefit the most disadvantaged children, almost by definition, and any delays or hiccups are likely to affect those children least able to cope with the lack of resources. And I know this is a fight with the civil servants, but I think we need to be far more assertive as an authority to tell them it's just not acceptable that halfway through the financial year we do or do not get a grant. So thank you, Chair, for a second bite of the cherry.
Thank you, Councillor Franks. Councillor Goodjohn, could I let you come in at this point, because I know you've got something you want to say on the matter. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can I just start by assisting Councillor Franks, because in Appendix 3 of the report you can find all the details of all the school deficits or surpluses for the last 5 to 6 years for every school. So that should help you out there. Can I quickly also make the point that there's not an enormous amount that we can control regarding spend in schools, because quite rightfully so, it's down to individual head teachers, schools and governor boards to decide. So when we're discussing overspend in the authority, I think it's fair to say that this is one of the areas, even though it's half of our spend, that's least easy to control overspends. That alongside social services, where we have a duty of care in order to provide care placements, and overspend when we're not expecting, we have a sudden rush of care placements needed, we have to provide that. So I think it's fair to say that these are not just the authority, the departments within the authority that are hardest to control, but it's also the largest segment of our budget. So it's understandable. I would also briefly say that when it comes to overall deficits, during COVID, there were significant reserves up to 13 million within the schools. So I think it's fair to say that had to come down, because pre-COVID it was hovering around 1 million, 2 million, as you can see in the figures. obviously it's gone too far for sure, and we need to work as far as we can with our schools to support that. But at the same time, it is fair to say that half of the entire overall deficit is in 2 schools. So we need to work as much as we can with individual schools. As for turning to overspends that we can control a lot better, I think it's fair to say there's been really good work regarding homelessness and the hotel, which we've, I believe it's fair to say we've gotten everyone out of, which is extremely positive because that was a huge overspend for the authority. It was a horrible lack of dignity for the residents there. So that's really positive to see this year, that fully coming to an end. And school transport, I think is fair to say, is probably the largest overspend that we can fully control, bearing in mind the things that we've already said regarding schools and social services. And I know that ALN, the implementation of the ALN Act has also had significant overspend. So I know Matt can't answer questions about that at this time. So can I request that we as a committee have a briefing with the education department about school transport and ALN overspends and what they're doing? Because I know from my role as youth champion, there's a huge amount of reform going on regarding school transport and engagement with parents and kids themselves about their experiences to try and not only improve the quality but also reduce the cost for us and make it reduce waste, as I think everyone would find positive. So can I formally request that from officers from this committee?
Thank you, Councillor Goodjohn. Definitely, I mean, as chair, I would like to support that. Matt, do you think that will be possible in the future?
Yeah, that should be possible. I think if you leave it to us, we'll talk to the relevant colleagues. There's a number of initiatives underway across the council to address the school transport pressures in particular. So I'll go in, we'll get the appropriate officers to come and talk to you.
Thank you. And as Councillor Goodjohn said, I mean, school spend is really, really difficult, really challenging. And I think, as Councillor Frank said, and a very large majority or percentage of it rather, are staffing costs. But what we can have some control over, which is why it's really important that we do look at that additional procurement resource, are the things that they don't need to spend more money on. And to be prudent, they'll have more money than to spend on the things that matter. So I think it would be good within that joint briefing if we can just understand a little bit better what that procurement officer for schools is working on and how they can, bring some impact on saving some money for them across the board on the things that they can control. That would be brilliant. Thank you. Councillor Norman, you want to come in too?
No, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Matt, for that. I've read the report. It's very detailed, and obviously a lot of work has gone into it. And please forgive me if my question has actually been answered in the report, but I couldn't find the answer to it. Now, we've spoken a lot about, you've spoken about the debt from council tax, non-payment of council tax. I'm concerned about the amount of debt owed to the council from council tax, rent arrears, both domestic and commercial properties. And another thing that's come to the fore is the non-payment of leases on sports pitches and sports pavilions, etc., and the cost of running these. All this is not an insignificant amount of money. And would it be possible to have a breakdown of the directorates that these deficits are in, and what measures is the council taking to recoup these monies and not just write it off? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Norman. You'll be glad to hear that information isn't in the report. So there's some high level info on the council tax, and I talked a little bit more about it when I introduced the report. But in terms of our other sundry debt that we carry as a council, that's not included in the report. I suspect what we could do with our quarterly monitoring is actually start bringing in some of those balance sheet type expenditures and pressures in, so there's a bit more visibility around how much the council's is owed at present and what measures we're taking. So I'm happy to follow that up.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you, Councillor Norman. And are you happy then for that report to come in our next quarterly update? Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Marvellous.
Yes, I realise you can't just magic these figures out of thin air, and a bit of research will be needed, but thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you. Any more questions on? No? Okay, that's great. Councillor Carroll, please come in.
Sorry, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Matt. It's just a follow on from Councillor Frank's point on school funding. I'm conscious that this is a problem that's been ongoing for this authority for some time. I think it was back in 2018 when I first discussed funding with the Central South Consortium in relation to underfunding from Welsh Government. And we continue to receive funding based on indicator-based assessments, far lower than any other local authority, as Matt said. Is it time for this committee to write to Welsh Government on this issue? I'm conscious that it may be something that others would argue was within the remit of the Education Committee rather than ours. But given that these are budgetary pressures and we are the Resources Scrutiny Committee responsible for oversight of that, I would be keen to hear other members' views as to whether we should make clear that it's putting huge pressures on this authority's ability to manage its budgets and that we need a complete reset as to how funding is allocated.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll. Matt, I know you would dearly love them to review the way they fund us and the formula they use, but please, do you want to make a comment on that one? Thank you.
I'll let Councillor Burnett come in. Councillor Prothero.
Leader, I see you. You have your hand up. Please come in.
Yeah, I think it's probably best if I handle this, as lobbying is more of a political activity. But I think there's a couple of things that committee would find of interest. One is that I'm education spokesperson in the WLGA and actually had a bilateral meeting with the Cabinet Secretary and her officials this morning. Funding, particularly ALN funding, was on that. There's also been a summit on school transport. I was the WLGA's representative on that. And there are things being taken forward. So I think Councillor Goodjohn's suggestion of having a briefing in terms of what's happening would be useful. I think if you go back, as I said, I'm also on the Finance Committee for WLGA, so we are lobbying at all levels. And I was in a meeting there this morning. One of the things that is particularly relevant is that Welsh Government are currently assessing school funding and breaking it down into component parts. Because if you look back at the Sibieta review on school finance, an awful lot of what was found was that school funding was quite dependent upon sparsity criteria and also on deprivation. And for us, we need to understand exactly where we are to find out where our funding is being influenced. Now, that should be coming forward in the not too distant future. And that, again, gives us something solid rather than saying, give us money. I agree that I feel that we are at the last count too far adrift, and that's exactly why we are in the positions that we are of arguing for more funding. But there are also meetings of chief executives. There are meetings of Section 151 officers, and so our officers will be contributing on that basis to those fora, and again making a case for fair funding. So if you want to write a letter, fine, because it's stuff that we're already saying in various other scenarios. But at the moment, we will continue to work with Welsh Government and hopefully make our voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. I'm sure your approach, being rather less Bob Geldof, is probably the right way to do it too. But yeah, thank you ever so much. Do we have anybody else who wants to ask any questions on this? No? Okay, that's great. Councillor Wood, please come in.
Apologies for being late there. No, I would support writing a letter. I believe that this funding formula that they have, and having studied economics and tried to work my way through it, is incredibly complicated, but the outcome is massively unfair. It's as simple as that. And I appreciate that there are other areas of Wales that may be statistically more deprived, but that is not the children of the Vale of Glamorgan's fault. And until we stand up and actually get a result, I think we shall whether it's a political gesture or not, I think it's the right thing for this committee to write a letter. It's enough now. This has been going on for donkey's years.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. And for clarity, are you asking committee to write a letter to Cabinet to lobby to change the funding formula, or to come straight from committee to Welsh Government?
I think I'm not sure legally or whether it is the right or the wrong thing to do. But if this committee can write a letter, I believe we should.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Carroll. You have your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I think it may also be prudent to write to the respective Senedd members for the Vale of Glamorgan and Cardiff South and Penarth, because they either currently or have served at very high levels in Welsh Government, one, albeit briefly, at the very highest level of all. And so they are in a position to influence how the Vale of Glamorgan is funded, how this authority is funded, and how funding is allocated. So I actually think that could be a lobbying effort on behalf of this committee, on the part of this committee, and I would propose that this committee write to both Jane Hutt and Vaughan Gething, asking them to argue the case on the authority's behalf.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll. Councillor Wood, your hand is still up. I don't know if that's legacy or are you coming back? No, he's gone. Okay. Okay then, so we've got a number of recommendations now, including writing a letter, which we'll check on the legal position here, whether it goes via Cabinet or whether it can go straight to Welsh Government Department, to see if they would review the funding formula, and also including our Senedd members, so they can also have sight of this letter, which Councillor Goodjohn, do you want to come in?
Yeah, no, just on the writing of the letter, I think we can check, but I think it's fine for us as a committee. I would just say regarding Councillor Carroll's point that we lobby Senedd members whenever they are in office, and all Senedd members who are in office who represent the area of the Vale of Glamorgan, we're happy to lobby. I think that's fine.
Yeah. Agreed. That's fine. Right, so we've got no more questions. Let's just go to our recommendations then, because I think we've got a number here. First of all, we are looking for that joint briefing with education on ALN and the ALN and transport and the school spend. That would be great. We've also got a number then of actions. We want to recommend to Cabinet that they lobby Welsh Government to make sure that we get the schools grants earlier in the year. At least we can ask, because that would make it so much easier for everybody. And we also want to write a letter that goes from us, if we can, and includes our Senedd members to see if they would, and to say that we would like them to review the funding formula, because at the moment it's not benefiting our schools or our children. I think that's it. I don't think I've missed anything. So if I haven't, if we can have a hand to move, we'll move to the next agenda item. Thank you, Councillor Goodjohn, and thank you, Councillor Wood. Thank you, Matt. Right, so let's move then on to agenda item. Are we on 5 or 6 now? I think we're on 6, aren't we? So it's the capital closure of accounts. This is another reference that's come from Cabinet on the 3rd of July. Over to you again, Matt. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And a very similar reference to the revenue outturn report. So Cabinet on the 3rd of July requesting that this committee considers the capital outturn and for any recommendations to go back to them. Hopefully this is in a fairly familiar format by now. It seems to work, so we've stuck with it. The report outlines the outturn of the 2024-5 capital programme by directorate, and also details the funding sources used to fund the programme. It starts off by noting the current adjusted programme of £83.2 million. And despite capital schemes facing continuing challenges due to a number of issues, including cost increases, shortage of resources, it's still pleasing to note that due to commitment and hard work across all the directorates, the capital programme has nonetheless outturned at £65.5 million. So just short of, 78-79% of the programme was spent before the end of the financial year. Of the variance, £14 million of that has already been picked up and approved through emergency powers. The summary position of all the changes by directorate from approval at council right back in on the 6th of March 2024 to the end of the financial year are set out in Appendix 2, so very clear trail. A breakdown of the funding of the capital programme is in the body of the report. So capital expenditure in the year was sufficient to cover the full allocation of the supported borrowing allocation from Welsh Government. That feeds through into later revenue settlements. The full allocation of £3.5 million of general capital grant, together with £2.7 million of general capital funding, has been spent during the year. And in common with previous years, there'll be instances where schemes were originally planned to be financed from that general capital funding, but the schemes have underspent outturn, and it's been possible with other schemes to fund where they were funded from capital receipts, revenue contributions, or capital reserves to substitute those in their place, so maximising the use of our grants. There's further funding streams were used to support the capital programme. The major one, a specific grant from Welsh Government, and that totaled £35.4 million. There's also the grant income from other sources in Section 106 that totaled £5.4 million, and there's also been contributions from revenue into the capital programme on a planned basis. We also had £1.3 million of capital receipts in 2004-5 and £1.9 million of deferred capital receipts to help fund the programme as well. and the balance on capital receipts now at the end of March 2025, just over £10 million, so £10.129 million, and a breakdown of that is also provided in the report. It's really important to recognise the work undertaken to deliver the capital programme, its investment in our county, and detailed within the report are some sections highlighting some of the schemes that have been successfully delivered in 2024-5. Just picking out a couple of similar ones and similar ones to which the leader picked out at Cabinet as well. So under learning and skills, specifically early years and childcare, small grant scheme where 26 applications were approved to deliver school schemes which provided grants to help childcare providers to improve settings to overcome health and safety concerns or provide better facilities for the children. So that's really positive. Under housing improvement programme, Hyle Croeso in Clantwit Major has been delivered. Real challenge and development, which requires the delivery of 90 units of temporary accommodation response to the current housing crisis using the council's permitted development rights. And that scheme consisted of 1, 2, 3 and 4 bedroom homes, including wheelchair accessible units, all of which were fully factory built modular homes with high energy efficiency rating. I'm happy to take any questions and similar to the revenue, if there's anything of specific detail that I can't answer this evening, I'm happy to get back to speak to the appropriate officers and update you by email. So that's all I was going to say by way of introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, and appreciate you're not operational. So it's a. I mean, look, it's a good place to be in. This, I think we can definitely thank all of the work that's gone into the capital programme, and accept that where we do see slippage, certainly with school bills. Well, they have the issue of school holidays, and they can't be working when they've got lots of kids running around, and it just happens. But does anybody else have any questions, please, on this particular item? No? Okay. Committee, oh, hang on. Councillor Franks is here. You nearly missed me then.
I'm sorry, I was scrolling furiously. I see reference to a school at Derry, and I'm going to have to try and find it, which I won't do. Is this the new school on Lavernock Road, or the existing one on Sully Road? And I found it. There's 706 variants, £1,000 at a school at Derry. So to repeat my question, is this the new build or the existing on Sully Road? And following the collapse of the contractor, can you remind us how much additional expenditure will we incur because we've had to find a new contractor?
Could you just tell me which part of the report you're in so I can get to the same place as you? Thanks.
Councillor Franks, are you able to just let Matt know which part of the report you were referring to? Is that possible?
Sorry.
Just to help him.
I'm talking to myself here, sorry. Loud and clear?
We can hear you.
Now?
We can hear you.
Right, there you are. I thought Matt could lip read, but obviously not. It's on page 14, Directorate of Learning and Skills, Band B, Ysgol Derry.
That will be the new build, and I don't have the total cost of the scheme in front of me, but what I can do outside the meeting, I'll get back to you and give you an update on the current position due to the challenges of the change of contractor.
Oh, okay.
And Councillor Protherose, shall I do that as a response to that, to you, and share for you to share with the committee so everybody's aware?
I think that would be ideal. Thank you, Matt.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Thank you, Chair.
Have we lost the chair, or? Sorry,
I think I'm here. Am I here?
Yeah,
I'm
you're
talking
here.
to myself. I'm always talking to myself. Can I just ask before we move to the next agenda item, do we have any other questions? No? Okay, that's great. So committee have considered the report. The only recommendation, or rather request, was for that additional information to come to all of us, Matt. That would be super. And no recommendations to go back to Cabinet. So if I could have a hand to move, that would be great. Matt, you've come back. Please say.
No, I just realised I'd take my camera off, so.
Oh, right, okay. I thought I'd said something or missed something out.
That's fine.
Thank you,
Yeah.
and share it with all of us. Thank you on the variance there on Ascaladerry 2 or whatever the building was. Right, okay. Can I have a hand to move then? Thank you, guys. Thank you, Councillor Drake, and thank you, Councillor Franks. Right, so let's move on to agenda item 7. This is the piece of work that our Task and Finish group from this committee have been working on for the last year and a bit. It's been quite a long time coming, this one. I think, if that's okay with everybody, I'll just do, it's 45 pages long. I'm not going to read it out to everybody, and hopefully some of you will have already read this. Hopefully all of you would have read this. But if I just do a quick introduction, and I appreciate procurement isn't everybody's bag, but if I'll just go through some of the headline points, if that's okay with everybody. So at the moment, public sector in Wales spends about 8 billion a year on works, goods and services, and that's quite a significant portion of the Welsh Government's total spend. So if we looked above what just the local authority looks after, that's a really good opportunity to influence positive social, economic and environmental outcomes, which would support our Wellbeing of Future Generations in the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act and the socio-economic duty. So in our particular case, in the Vale of Glamorgan, we spend approximately 331 million a year, and we have a devolved approach to the commissioning process. We've got circa 80 buyers, and they sit across the authority. And we have, since April 2023, to support that function, we've been part of a collaboration along with Cardiff Council, Monmouthshire and Torfaen County Council, which has given us potential to access to specialist procurement expertise and support. Generally, procurement's one of the most important levers we've got to support how we do what we do in the Vale of Glamorgan. And it's essential value-adding activity, so we can help us meet wellbeing objectives and also deliver effective public services. Now, socially responsible public procurement takes that one step further, and that's acting when procuring to improve economic, social, environmental and also cultural wellbeing. So, and it would also help us to get to net zero and support a green recovery. And that is all about making those conscious decisions to apply that circular economy thinking to what we're currently buying. So it's definitely the case now, all local authorities within Wales are facing a challenge on how we respond to climate change and the need to reduce our carbon emissions. And we do that through the supply chain, because we aren't any different to any other local authority. About 80% of our carbon emissions is through the supply chain. And it's also the case now that we need to meet socially responsible procurement duty, because we've now got a Social Partnership and Public Procurement Wales Act, which is telling us we've got to set objectives as an authority in relation to wellbeing goals. We've got to do an annual report on our wellbeing and social value outcomes, and that's a legal requirement for local authorities in Wales. Already some authorities will have a more mature procurement function, and that will already be in place. So they'll be capturing, monitoring and reporting on social value outcomes. And this authority would have been able to learn from these examples. But the art of making outcomes truly meaningful means that we've got to design with the community and not just respond and actually work with what's been identified by the community. And that isn't really such a well understood piece of work. And with some of our recommendations, we're hoping that the Vale will be able to lead the way and do it slightly differently. So going back to what we've been doing, so it was a meeting of corporate resources and performance scrutiny, the year before last, the year before last. And we were debating how the Vale procures now and how it could improve this function. And that led us to the recommendation to set up a task and finish working group, which we agreed would focus specifically on how we can embed circular economy principles into the way we buy things, and also look at maximising our social value outcomes and decarbonisation outcomes. So we agreed at that meeting of scrutiny chairs and vice chairs, and that was coming up to September, that this review of the new procurement policy and strategy would be the first task and finish group that we would do, and we would keep that focus on embedding circular economy principles and maximising social value outcomes. We knew that at the time that the legislation was coming in, which was a massive overhaul of public sector procurement. That was actually delayed until February of this year. But we knew that this would be something that would change how public sector bodies procure anyway. So we wanted to make sure our scope was quite clear, and that we didn't sort of move into compliance issues. When we started then discussing this January of last year, and we met periodically throughout that year, we looked at a wide range of evidence, and we had presentations from subject matter experts and also other local authorities to look at best practice, innovation, to help us decide what would be the best way for us to do what we needed to do. We looked particularly at terms of capturing and monitoring social value, fair working, sustainability, toolkits, and how we could work collaboratively with partners and suppliers. So specifically during this year, when the group met, we looked at how Vale Glamorgan currently carries out its procurement function. We looked at the relationship between Ardal and the Vale Glamorgan Council. We looked at the handoffs between Ardal and our buyers. We had an overview of the circular economy. We had an overview of social value, and we had testimony and expert witnesses that came in and did talks on these issues. So we had Jill Davis. She came from Cardiff Met University. She did a presentation to the group on the circular economy. We had Steve Robinson, who was head of Ardal in Cardiff County Council, and he came and talked about how we work and what the Ardal partnership was all about. We had Mark Crumby. He came from RCT Council. He's the head of procurement, and he talked to us about how they have managed their social value in their procurements. And then we also did some internal digging. We had an update from our council's dedicated procurement officer, Yvette Campbell, and we also had updates from buyers. We had a session with them in the chamber, and also we had an update from Matt Baumer, our council's Section 151 officer. So there's an awful lot of learning and lots of information to be taken in. So we ended up with 8 sections of recommendations. The first one, which was really that we needed, as a council, to have a social value policy in place. We knew that this was going to help us maximise our benefits of spending and our procurement activities. that it would align with our strategic goals whilst ensuring that our spending is used to its fullest potential. We wanted to make sure that it defined social value as far as we were concerned of what it meant for us, and that it would be aligned with procurement legislation, the social responsible procurement duty, which is to improve economic, social, environmental and cultural well-being. We knew that this policy then should confirm that we will realise social value in our procurement practices, and that we would consider it with all of our procurements. We would take proportional and relevant approach to applying social value considerations. And more than that, we'd apply it in a way that generates positive and meaningful outcomes and doesn't create barriers for SMEs and our third sector suppliers. And importantly, that we would ensure transparency and equality of treatment in the application of these considerations. We knew that we'd want it to describe our evaluation methodologies, which could be qualitative and quantitative, using the TOMs, which we do now as part of ARDL, and using those as measures to score what suppliers are saying they're going to be prepared to commit for the duration of the contract. And we thought we'd just concentrate on the 6 main themes, which are supporting the local economy, addressing climate emergency, promoting fair work, investing in our future workforce, and strengthening the voluntary community sector, and also the cultural well-being of people in the Vale. And we also wanted this policy to focus on how we're going to monitor and evaluate the effectiveness of these actions. We don't have this policy at the moment, but it isn't an unusual thing. Most authorities would have one, which is why it's our first recommendation. We've already got a procurement strategy, and this is something that I know is going to be reviewed and is being reviewed. So it should be socially responsible. So we've asked as a recommendation that is reviewed to establish a clear vision for circularity, setting measurable wellbeing goals for procurement, making sure that we encompass ethical sourcing, our environmental considerations, and social value creation through that procurement cycle. We want it to be integrated into our corporate plan and also our carbon management plan, and to have KPIs and monitoring mechanisms. We also wanted to review our commissioning pre-tender template, so that when buyers consider that they're going out to tender for something, that they focus on making that specification a green specification, that they follow a standardized process, because as we've said, with 80 buyers throughout the council, it's difficult to make sure that everybody's doing something similar, because it's very devolved. We don't want this just to be a tick box exercise. We want it to inform and ensure that circular economy questions are included along with appropriate social value questions. We also feel, and this is something again which is a little bit different and isn't something that many would have done over the years, but at the end of life of a contract, the end of life of a service, to have a decommissioning template, because traditionally we just look at what a product does. We don't consider what happens when the contract ends, but this in a circular economy is something we really need to also focus on, because it's maximising resource recovery, it's minimising waste, it's looking at how we extend the lifespan of assets and that we repurpose materials, and most crucially of all, that we prevent anything going into landfill. So it's a really important thing to start considering as part of your core specification. Training on the circular economy is also another recommendation of ours, and not just for our buyers. We thought that strategic leadership team, the SLT, and other councillors should also have an understanding of this. As we've said, we've got a devolved procurement function. We have buyers who work independently of each other. They're multifunctioning, they have other jobs too. And they will have a varied degree of understanding of circular economy and social value, and how it applies to the work that they're doing. So if we give them the training, it's going to empower them to make more sustainable purchasing decisions, help them understand those principles. And we are looking to make cultural and behaviour changes here. So we think it's beneficial for SLT and our councillors to also get this training too. So we're all on the same page. On On the setting of social value questions within our tenders, again, we think buyers would benefit from having training on that too, so that they will understand through their questions how it aligns with what they're buying and specific policy outcomes. So it's clear what they're doing. Buyers also need to connect with our communities, and this is quite essential, because if it's not done to them, it's done with them, and we don't make assumptions of what the community needs, that's what makes it a meaningful social value outcome. So that's something else that we need to do. As we've said, our buyers here are devolved and they sit across the directorates. And so having a community of practice approach, which is another one of our recommendations, we know it's going to be a very supportive thing for them. It'll help prevent the kind of scope creep and non-compliance that happens because they're not procurement specialists as such. As I've said, they've also got other jobs and they continue to work in their departments, and there will be directorate practices that might be slightly different. But we also think that the creation of a community of practice will help buyers. It'll help them learn together. It'll improve their skills and knowledge. You can do workshops through that, have shared templates and tools. They can support each other, mentor each other, and coaching. And it will help them to interact, exchange ideas, and collaborate on solving problems. At the moment, we know that there was a shared email group and information is cascaded out to them, but it doesn't work both ways. And when we had our event in the chamber, it was one of the first times that a lot of them had come together and they thought it was beneficial. So I think we, as a group, we think a community of practice would be really helpful. We also think it would be a good idea to set up a commissioning procurement board, again, to have the heads of service, ARDL procurement lead, ARDL relationship management, and have that board to make sure that the strategic direction and the needs assessment of the authority would be discussed alongside the activity of ensuring that all of these works, goods and services are acquired efficiently and effectively. And through that board, there'd be that shared commitment and understanding of the circular economy to make sure that we get as much social value back from the tenders. And it's recommended this group, this board sits quarterly and discusses together each area's pipeline of procurement activity working in collaboration. We also think that, as other authorities already do this, that we need to have the resourcing for a social value monitoring officer. This will ensure the social value commitments made by successful bidders during that procurement process are delivered and they are measured effectively. So we perceive that this post would take responsibility for the authority of identifying, tracking and reporting these social value outcomes, potentially supporting buyers and ARDL in the evaluation of these questions. We would see that they'd work with our suppliers to address any shortcomings in the delivery and also develop a robust reporting mechanism. They'll create relationships with the regen and community supporting teams in this authority, because the community groups and third sector organisations then, and there'll be that bridge so that we can make sure social value outcomes are meaningful as they're being set with the input of our communities and they're not being done to our communities. So I think we'd see them as being a social value expert for the authority. And so we'd expect that they would help develop guidance and training material for buyers and for suppliers so we can identify and implement and measure the social value. We'd also like to see an ARDL relationships manager. This is to make sure that the policy turns into practice, and this role will manage that relationship with ARDL to make sure we get a return on our investment. We want them to support activities of the ARDL procurement partnership and our council buyers to make sure that procurements are undertaken in line with our policies, and also to have them take responsibility for that collection of data from ARDL. We think because we do need to have a contracts register, they could also look at the forward work plan, pipeline and annual procurement report. We think they'd probably work with our commissioning board, take the lead on the community of practice to make sure buyers are fully aware and compliant with Vale Glam social value policy and the social responsibility strategy. They're going to work closely with our social value monitoring officer, as we've said, to make sure we get consistent data captured on our social value outcomes. And I think as well, because part of our review is to see how we can get more spend with our local suppliers. So we would perceive that they would work on an internal project with officers from our economic development team and our local suppliers to develop that local spend action plan. It could include, as RCT do, in the setting up of a local business directory so that we can have a mechanism to contact them, especially when we're looking at the lower value threshold exercises. Another absent, and it is absent at the moment, is the reporting of data. So we need to have that mechanism to collect data. We haven't been able to see what spend is going through ARDL, although I understand that that is being worked on, and we don't really have a formal reporting mechanism yet in place for our social value outcomes, although saying that ARDL do have a system called Thrive, which they're going to be using. But these two things, they are crucial for us so that we can gain insight into our procurement processes and supplier performance, how we're spending, where we're spending money. And there is now a statutory duty on us to do more than just tick a box to show that we've considered socially responsible public procurement. So we're also going to have to set wellbeing goals, publish our procurement strategy. I think I've already said that. And so to have robust reporting mechanisms in place, it's an essential thing. To help us, I think, with contacting our third-party organisations and communities, this is a suggestion other authorities are also doing. It's an IT system. It was called a dating app for third-party organisations for social value. So it's basically it's an online platform that will help the Vale of Glamorgan Council collaborate with those community groups and charities and third sectors to improve that social, economic and environmental well-being of the county. So it's like a, I suppose you could say, a digital space. Suppliers post their social value offers on there, and that will directly respond to a need that's been identified by a community group who says that they need something. So you kind of have that match of the offer. Surrey Council had done something similar, and I believe a council in Scotland had as well. There's also the potential for a reuse platform. So this is basically making sure that what we've got, we don't throw away, and it could be of use to someone else. So it's an online inventory of products for reuse and sharing with other directorates, and also other organisations could, instead of it being discarded. So that facilitates the transfer of resources between departments, reduces waste, saves money, promotes sustainable practice. It's just a simple thing. And then our last recommendation, you'll be very relieved to know, is that we pilot the circular approach. So before we go completely live with all of this, the group's recommended that we take what we've learned, pilot a procurement exercise that's focusing on that circular economy, which allows us to test and refine what we understand of it within that controlled environment of just that one exercise. So those are the recommendations that after that year we've come up with. I'd like to thank every single member of the Task and Finish group for their patience throughout this process. That was Councillor Goodjohn, Carol, Hanks, Haynes, Johnson. We had some smashing support from our Vale of Glamorgan Council officers, Matt Baumer, Yvette Campbell, and Mark Thomas, our Democratic Service Officer, who has really, really supported us throughout all of this. So we'd like to thank him too. So I don't really know if there's very much more that I can say about this report. It's 46 pages long, and that was probably considerably longer than I thought I'd be talking about it. But it's now over to you, committee, for any more further questions. If there's anything anybody wants to ask, please do. God, have I sent you all to sleep? I'm so sorry. Councillor Goodjohn.
Just to say, you've stunned us to silence, Chair. I just wanted to ask about the process of how this now goes forward. Thank
you, Councillor Goodjohn. So this is our piece of work. The recommendations are for Cabinet now to look at and to see if within what we're saying they can support some of these recommendations and put them into practice. I know, as I've said, that the procurement strategy is being reviewed, so I would expect that both of these documents will be looked at by Cabinet at the same time, and the changes will be made. And I think that's how I would envisage this process to work next. So we're really just asking this committee to recommend that we send this report back on its way up to Cabinet for them to look at those recommendations that we've put forward for their consideration. And if everybody is happy with that, and we have a hand to move, then thank you, everybody. Thank you, Councillor Franks, good job, and Drake. As I said, I have stunned you into silence with that. Thank you. Okay, so let's. Moving on to the next item. Thank you, everybody, which is the Task and Finish Review Activity Report. I think we've got our Democratic Service Officer, Liz. They've done some amazing work in the background with the suggestions that committee put forward. Talked to officers. We've had the feasibility report back, and I think, Liz, do you want to just say a few words on it?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I'll just introduce it briefly. I'll just introduce the item briefly, as members will be aware that suggestions were made by members of the committee for task and finish review topics at the meeting in May. Members were also then invited to make further suggestions or add further detail to their proposed topic via email following the meeting. Officers have provided feedback on the proposed topics, have made suggestions on their scope and feasibility, and have indicated where they feel a task and finish topic could be achievable during this municipal year. This is detailed in Appendix A. The topic suggestion on the Council's communication strategy has been identified in the report as having the potential to be achieved as the committee's first task and finish review. And the recommendations as set out in the report are: one, that committee agrees that the topic of the Council's communication strategy as detailed in Appendix A1 to the report be agreed as the first task and finish review topic undertaken by the committee. And number two, that the size, composition and membership of the task and finish review group is agreed also. Thank you, Chair. That takes you through the basics of the report.
Thank you, Liz. Okay, committee, so we've got that recommendation before us, which is that we go with, I think the first suggested task and finish group is on looking at our comms strategy. I don't know if anybody else would like to comment on that. How do we feel as a group? It's certainly something that I think a lot of us think would benefit from looking at, and I know that they are reviewing the comms strategy at the moment, so they probably like to know what we think. Anybody got any comments on that? Councillor Goodjob. Of the Emma variety, I should say. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is a fantastic way forward, and like you said, if we're reviewing the comms strategy now, then it makes sense, and I'd like to agree and go with the recommendation.
That's great, thank you. Do we think that this is something that just this committee would be involved with? Do we think anybody else should be involved in forming the task and finish group, that is? No? Okay. Councillor Goodjohn.
Yeah, I would just say that this is quite an internal task and finish in comparison to some, and that those members who go on the task and finish can definitely get external advice, external expertise, which can be really helpful, as we saw through the procurement task and finish. So even if there's no formal representation outside, there's definitely lots of scope for lots of support from outside of the Vale of Glamorgan Council to really improve our common strategy.
Thank you. Well, then it sounds as if we're going with comms, which is great. So I think now we need to look at members who would like to be part of this task and finish group. I know that Councillor Lovelock Edwards proposed it, and I know that she couldn't be here tonight, but she would want to be part of the group. We're just asking now who would like to be part of this TNF. I can see Councillor Emma Goodjohn, you've got your hand up.
Yes, please, Chair. Also, I'd like to second you on Belinda, Councillor Lovelock Edwards, as she proposed it. I know she's very, very keen to help with this.
Okay, that's good. So anybody else? I mean, we're looking for probably about 6 members, but we can go up to 8 if there is enough interest. Councillor Franks?
Foolishly, Ian's not here, so I'm going to propose him.
Very good, very good.
And I'm switching off now, so you can't talk me into it.
Propose you, yes, as well. I'm sure he'll be excellent. How about from our Conservative group? Councillor Carroll, is there anybody on your team, or would you like to be involved?
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to forego the opportunity to other colleagues, given that I served on the last one. However, I am conscious that there may be time constraints. So if nobody else is available, I will gladly do it.
Do you want to speak to your team about that, or are you?
I'll tell you what. Put me down provisionally. If somebody else puts themselves forward, we'll change it. But I would imagine it will be me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you ever so much. How about any of our independents? About Councillor Carroll or Councillor Norman? Is this of interest to you? Anybody? It'd be really interesting, I promise. Councillor Campbell, I can see you've got a hand up. Can I nominate you?
Yeah, go on then. Stick my name down then.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Norman.
Yeah, put me down as well then.
Okay, that's great. How are we doing now, Liz?
We do have 6 suggestions or proposals of names here. So just to run through those to make sure we have the correct names.
Have we got good political balance here? Is that the way to call it?
Yeah, so it's ideal that we have political balance, and I think we have somebody representing each of the parties. So we the members that we have nominated. I know Belinda Lovelock Edwards, Councillor Lovelock Edwards, has suggested that although she wasn't able to join, she would be interested in joining the task and finish group. Councillor Emma Goodjohn. Councillor Franks has nominated Councillor Johnson, so we will provisionally just wait upon his confirmation that he wants to join. Councillor Carroll, Councillor Campbell and Councillor Norman. If for any reason, say for instance, Councillor Johnson isn't able to commit to joining the group, we can take it forward with fewer than 6. It doesn't have to be sort of a minimum of six members. So yes, I think I would suggest we have enough numbers and enough political balance there, Chair.
Perfect. Okay. And again, I'm happy to join if needed, but if we're okay with numbers and there will be enough interest from all of our groups, and that's perfect. Councillor Franks.
You should have kept quiet there, because I'm now also going to suggest it would be very important for you to be this. I thought you'd been included from the start, so you should have kept quiet. So I propose Joe.
Well, thank you. Are we still okay there? I mean, I would like to say, and this is something that I felt quite strongly about the last task and finish group. It was a really good, I'm going to sound cheesy, but a good experience of cross-party working. And I think it bodes really well for further task and finish groups, if I'm honest, because we are there to try and solve a problem for the authority, and we're pulling together to do it, which is exactly what a task and finish group should be all about. So excellent. So how are we with that then, Liz? What do you think? Are we okay with those names so far?
Yes,
Or
Chair.
are we now tipping it over?
Well, again, it's an ideal that we would have exact political balance. So if people are happy with the names that we've had put forward, can I just confirm that you want me to include yourself, Chair?
Well, I've been nominated, so I suppose I'll have to now.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Franks.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and yes, thank you. That's perfect.
Okay, right then. So I think, yeah, I suppose we can just. Can I just have a hand to move then? We've done the business on that particular agenda item. Thank you, Councillor. Good job. Thank you, and Councillor. Good job. Okay, so if we move to agenda item 9, this is any items the Chair's decided are urgent part 1. You'll all be glad to know that there aren't any. If we move to part 2, and this is the press and public exclusion part, and again, agenda item 10, we don't have any items on this bit that I've decided are urgent. So thank you everyone for tonight. And that will conclude the meeting. I think our next task and finish group, because we have recess in August. Do we have that date? Yeah, sorry, Liz, and I probably should know this, but.
Sorry, Chair, are you asking for the committee meeting date?
Yes.
In September. Bear with me, I believe it's the
Yes.
17th, but I'm going to just make
17th,
sure I have
yeah.
that correct. Yes, the 17th. Thank
I
you,
think
Chair.
you're right. And as far as the date for our task and finish group, we will find a date that everybody can go to and attend. That's
Yes,
how we
Chair.
work it, isn't it?
Yes, I'll be in touch to try and arrange the first meeting. I think that would be looking to have a formal meeting after recess now for people's availability, but I'll get in touch to look at what people's availability might be.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
So thanks everybody, and have a good night, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.